Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's graduate student success session on foundations for financial well-being. Thank you all for being here. Today we have with us representatives from the Office of Student Financial Assistance and from Powercat Financial to talk with you a little bit about some processes related to financial support, related to financial aid, and helping you understand some of the financial aspect of your graduate education, as well as to share with you some guidance and resources to help you navigate financial planning and management of your finances while in graduate school. And thanks to those of you that are joining by Zoom. We are recording today's session, so we'll have that available for those of you that are here if you want to refer back to this later to recap any of the information that is shared. All right, and we'll get started with Derek Gaunt, who is here from the Office of Student Financial Assistance, and then we'll turn it over to Powercat Financial. We'll be able to just click on here. Wait, to advance. This mouse is kind of backwards. So,
oh, sure. No worries.
That should.
Perfect.
That's right.
Awesome.
There you go. All right. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. Thank you. All right. So yeah, my name is Derek. I'm a financial aid advisor. My job is to attend events like these and also have meetings one-on-one with students to talk about financial aid, federal aid, scholarships, loans, grants, all sorts of fun things. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about federal aid options and eligibility requirements. Might blaze through those pretty quick, since I know that a lot of the stuff may be pretty apparent because you guys are current students. Some sprinkled throughout. This is, not in any necessarily any order, but some sprinkled throughout. Talk a little bit about some changes to financial aid, federal aid, that came from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that went into effect on July 4th. As a precursor, we're still figuring some things out. So as I'll mention, or I'll demonstrate, stay tuned. I'll cover some things that we know, but some other things we're still figuring out. I'm going to talk about cost of attendance, since that I know that got some questions about that, specifically, how aid affects it and how we can adjust it, and then just some also kind of throughout just some general good to know stuff, just some things to think about. So first, talk about federal aid specifically, for folks who completed the FAFSA or can or still need to, whether it's for this year. It is not too late if you still have yet to complete the FAFSA. You still can do so. The link is just a lot smaller. For those attending in 26-27, the form is open now. K-State's priority date is December 1st, but priority dates aren't necessarily as relevant for grad students, since you're only considered for one type of aid that is kind of guaranteed. So not as big of a deal. But important is for any student, for our office, one of our primary ways of communicating with students is through cases, through your tasks tile or your to-do list. Specifically within your FAFSA, like if there's any additional steps that you'll need to take, any additional documentation we'll communicate that on your cases to-do list. You will receive emails telling you that, hey, we have some missing documentation or missing information. But you can always go to cases to check your task tile to see if there's anything there. Exit counseling is just an example. It's just kind of what it will look like. But there's a task tile with the little yellow triangle there that you can check to see if there's anything we need. Of course, you can always reach out with questions about any specific tasks that you have. Upon completing your FAFSA, we send out a financial offer notification each year. Very old and pixelated example there, but you have part of your financial offer notification is a cost of attendance. Uh, they are it's compared to your aid offer and kind of gives you like a hey, this is what your net cost may be. Um, to accept aid that you've been offered, you do have to go into cases to accept it under your financial aid tile. So definitely something to note is that you do have to go in and accept it. Here's where I'll kind of move pretty quick regarding federal aid eligibility and some of the terms and conditions. To be eligible for federal loans, you have to be in a degree-seeking program at least half time, which is 5 credit hours, and meeting satisfactory academic progress. That is a 3.0 GPA cumulative and having and within your maximum attempted units of your program length. For grad students, that's 200%. Example, got a 90 credit hour program. Got to get if you're up to 180 like within your program, then you would no longer be eligible for federal aid without an appeal. So um, yeah, but that is pretty much that's it. And not some eligibility requirements. Federal student aid options for grad students is a lot more limited than it is for undergrad. If you hadn't noticed already, you're only offered unsubsidized loans, and you have the potential to apply for Grad Plus for this year. Uh, and some students may be offered federal work study, although availability for working on campus may not be the same as it is for like an undergrad student. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, grad students are not eligible for any sort of need-based scholarships, or excuse me, any sort of need-based grants or subsidized loans. So, uh, options limited. If you didn't know, subsidized uh, loans, interest is deferred while you're in school. Unsubsidized loans, you interest is accruing on those. Um, If you have received any Parent Plus loans as an undergrad, those are now no longer available. You can only look at grad plus loans where you are the borrower. But some things are changing with that, so which we'll get into. Grad plus loans are going away starting next year, July 1st, 2026, unless you have accepted a Grad Plus loan prior, or a Grad Plus loan has dispersed prior to July 1st, 2026. If that's the case, then you will have access to Grad Plus loans for up to 3 additional years through aid year 2029, spring 2029, or through the estimated program length, whichever comes first. So if you got 1.5 years left of your program, you get Grad Plus loans for 1.5 more years. Um, and we're still figuring out specifically how we're going to monitor that and things. But it's one of those things that we're still figuring out in terms of how that realistically looks here at K-State. Uh, the loan kind of back to loans and loan offers. Federal direct unsub loan limits per year is 20,500. That is staying the same. That is the maximum for fall, spring, and summer of each academic year. We treat the summer as a trailing term. So if you hadn't accepted any, or if you haven't accepted like the full 20,500 by the end of the spring term, you could receive the remaining of your eligibility in the summer if you are enrolled at least in 3 hours. Summer is a little bit different than a fall or spring. But that 20,500 is initially going to be offered as 10,250 each semester, split between the fall and the spring. These loans have fixed interest rates, unsub loans at a 7.94% this year, Grad Plus loans at an 8.94. That will change next year. We'll get those on July 1st, or prior to July 1st. We'll know what those are going to be, but probably not until like June. But those are the rates for this year. Annual loan limits. We are still, this is another thing that we're definitely still trying to figure out. Enrollment level, may affect annual loan limits for those enrolled half-time rather than full-time. Additionally, lifetime loan limits are changing. This is actually potentially an increase to loan limits, depending on how you want to look at it. It used to be that the loans you took out as an undergrad student would also count towards your lifetime limit. That is no longer the case. It used to be grad students had a lifetime limit of 138,500. Now it's kind of split. Uh, Undergrad students have their own loan limits, and now grads you have a new unsub loan limit, or excuse me, grad student loan limit. That is now just 100,000. For an independent undergrad, their loan limit is 57,500. So technically, the loan limit went up, but if you hadn't accepted any loans as an undergrad, it's decreasing for you. It's kind of a case by case basis, but hopefully, that is not wouldn't be a concern for folks. But and this is the unsub loan limit for lifetime. As I mentioned, we're still figuring out all the ramifications of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act on our website under this applying for financial aid heading. The very last item type, it's highlighted there. Is where you can go to get updates on the changes and how we're monitoring it and understanding what the implications are and what we're going to do. So essentially, stay tuned. We're figuring out things as kind of as they are announced. So if you hadn't seen it in the news, we probably don't know it either. Unfortunately, we don't have a bat phone where they call us to tell us all the secret info. We're kind of with you guys. Alrighty. Moving back to kind of just general info. Federal loans are in deferment for 6 months after graduating, or while you are in school. So you do not have to make any payments on your federal loans while you're enrolled, but you certainly can. And it would be financially advisable if you can to make any payments on the interest as it accrues. You can contact your loan servicer. Um, but you do not have to. But if you can, it's a great idea to do it. Save you a little bit of money in the long run. Um, if you, if there's any concerns, like any grads, any loans you accepted as an undergrad, those will be deferred while you're in school. The principal, you don't have to um, make any sort of payments there. Subsidized loans that you accepted as an undergrad will continue to not accrue any interest. Unsubsidized loan interest will continue. Um, you can tell I borrowed this from my vet school slides, forgot to change that. While you're in vet school or grad school. But again, you can contact your loan servicer for more info regarding your loans, your repayment. There's like a 8 or so different servicers out there. Everybody's assigned to one. You can find out who that is on studentaid.gov. You can log in to the FSA website and determine who your servicer is to ask about repayment, make any payments there. So, but we can help you find them too. Just as a note, just, you do have those 20,500 in loans. You can borrow Grad Plus loans this year and for the next couple of years, but you do not have to accept all of that. You should only borrow what you need, as Powercat Financial would attest to. You can reduce the amount after it has dispersed. You can ask us to, like, even after it's dispersed and you get your refund, even at this time in the year, say you accepted your loans, okay, I'm going to need this much to pay for my rent for this semester. Oh, I've got 500, $1,000 left over. You want to reduce your loans? Let us know. We can do that for you. We'll send the funds back to the feds, then you pay us. Um, it'd be like you hadn't accepted that larger amount in the first place. Um, a little bit about cost of attendance. So this all kind of ties into financial aid because financial aid is your limits to some forms of aid, to many forms of aid, are set by your cost of attendance, specifically loans. But Each student has a budgeted cost of attendance. You can see that on cases under your Student Services Center. You should also be able to see it under your financial aid tile. I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with the student side of things, but if you were to set up a meeting with an advisor or call or send us an email, we could let you know like what your cost of attendance is. Again, it will be featured on your financial offer notification that you get once we like figure out what or package your federal aid after completing the FAFSA. Um, so you can it is there's a student view version, but we can also help you find it. Um, let's see. Things that affect cost of attendance, of course, residency, whether you're paying in-state or out-of-state tuition, your enrollment levels, if you're half-time or full-time, if you're living on campus, off campus, on base, like with basic allowance for housing. So it's things can affect cost of attendance quite a bit. Um, but of course, these are averages. These aren't exact numbers by any means. We do our best to try to guess what your budget will be, but we can change things. There is a possibility that we may need to update this stuff. Um, as you kind of saw a little bit, cost of attendance, we include tuition and fees, housing, food, books, supplies, transportation, miscellaneous stuff. We also will include the loan fees because there are some origination fees for unsub as well as grad plus loans. So we include those. Um, we can account for things like if you're studying abroad, we can include those costs, dependent care expenses. These are not an exhaustive list by any means, but definitely some things to consider. Um, all scholarships, waivers, sponsorships, loans, they're all when if you were to log into financial aid, you'd be able to see like all of your aid, including some estimates. Like if you have a GTA or a GRA or a sponsorship or an assistantship, whatever, and you receive some sort of waiver for that, we have an estimate in your like financial aid package that represents like this is how much we think you're going to get, and that is compared to your cost of attendance. The main thing we're looking for is what of your cost of attendance has not been covered. That determines how much you can get in loan aid because loans cannot exceed your cost of attendance. If you say your cost of attendance is 40,000 for the year, you have 20,000 in scholarships, sponsorships, whatever, waivers, non-resident waivers, what have you. You can then only receive another 20,000 in loans that year. It cannot exceed that amount. You get another scholarship for $5,000 and you're already at that cost of attendance. We actually have to reduce your loans. But of course, that's a much better situation to be in. That's less loans you have to pay back. You still receive that scholarship. It's still counting towards your bill. You're still receiving that aid. But yes, we'll essentially like replace the charges that were paid with those loans. We'll then pay them with that scholarship instead. Um, and so sometimes you'll see like subtractions on your loans and your account activity. Fortunately, if you are receiving any sort of VA benefits, those are not counted towards your cost of attendance. Those, those are essentially kind of ignored when we're talking limits and things. Uh, but we can always adjust your cost of attendance if necessary, because that limit is based on averages. Sometimes your costs are going to be higher. Uh, if you have more, if you have higher tuition or housing or food, if you are paying for daycare because you have a kid, if you need to purchase a computer, if your books and supplies are really expensive, like if you're like an art student or something, you have to buy a bunch of supplies. If you have to fly home or need to replace, like, fix something in your car, we can include those expenses. Interestingly enough, it's vehicle maintenance. We cannot include car payments because federal regulations dictate that, like, if there is transportation available to students in your area, can include that. So, but we can include vehicle maintenance, interestingly. Federal government. We also, other things that we commonly get questions about of like things we can or can't include. We cannot include health insurance in a student's cost of attendance. Um, but we can potentially, uh, there are some certain circumstances where we can make some adjustments. To look at increasing your cost of attendance, you can go to our website under our forms. The cost of attendance adjustment form there is the one that you can fill out and submit to our office. Um, and then we could potentially, rather than reducing your loans, we could like make room for that additional scholarship to come in were that to happen. Um, Very briefly, I'll talk about some additional options other than what we've talked about. Uh, we have a list of private lenders that K-State students have used on our website. These are often used as a last resort if you've used all of your aid or if it's unavailable, for whatever reason, like if you are enrolled less than half time or if you are in like a certificate program, potentially you may want to look at private lenders because federal aid wouldn't be an option. We can't recommend any specific lenders, but please look at interest rates, when you have to start making payments, what that payment plan looks like. Um, yeah, we can't stress enough to read the fine print on a private loan. Just because, unlike federal loans, private lenders, there's no standardization with them. So important to know what you're getting into. Also, bring to you guys' attention our emergency referral application. Uh, The oops. Um, this is support for unexpected, temporary financial crises. I gave some example there, like medical bills, um, car or home maintenance, like accidents, those kind of things. Um, just the kind of stuff that you can't count on. You need that comes up, you need some help, potentially reach out. You do have to have some room in your cost of attendance to us for us to put it on there because it is from our office, like or because it's from a university, it still has to fit within your cost of attendance in order for us to get provided. We are, subject to that regulation there, but if you have room, we can still provide it. You do have to have accepted all of your aid though. So if have able to complete the FAFSA, you have to have accepted all aid in order to be considered for these for this for emergency aid. Other folks can provide. You could also anybody can submit a request uh, if on your behalf, but then you'll be prompted to then provide some more information and documentation. Other than our application, there is also the K-State Proud application, but as a little preview, we are now working with the foundation to merge those two forms. So soon there will just be one emergency application, both K-State Proud and ERA. We're going to come together. So we're going to work with them. But for now, there's two separate applications. Opportunity Award is a little bit more general. It's for just students who are in a bind. They need some financial help. They could potentially provide help. There's also Cats Covered, um, which is an on-campus food pantry. It's on Denison, I believe. Thank you. And of course, Powercat Financial for personal finance help, as they will get into. And then, of course, set up a meeting with us. Oh, I forgot to change the. That's not Dylan. Chris Van Dorn helps last names A through D, but I got the other names changed. I got the other names changed. But you can meet with us in person, over Zoom, over the phone. You can email us. Just reach out if you need some support. If you have some more questions, you can sit down one on one, talk them through. I believe that's it. Uh, yeah. Is there any specific questions folks have about things we talked about today? Um, we could also, of course, again, schedule a meeting. But is there anything? Yeah. You guys have any questions?
We're monitoring Zoom down here too.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Anybody here?
Yeah, for FAFSA,
Mhm.
is it provided for internationals?
International students in most cases will not be eligible for the FAFSA. You have to either be a citizen or a permanent resident. There are some very specific circumstances where you can be eligible for the FAFSA, but it's pretty rare. Um, so I would encourage you to look at eligibility on that. But most likely, if you're not a citizen or a permanent resident, then most likely you would not be eligible for federal aid. Any other questions about federal aid, cost of attendance, anything? Yes.
On the cost of attendance, you gave the example of like, if, say your cost of attendance is 40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And with the loans, that's typically split. So if you get 20,000 in loans for the year, that would be split across the 2 semesters.
Yes, by default.
Okay,
But we can adjust it.
okay,
With grad students, it's a little bit more flexible. If a student needs the full 20,500 in the fall and their budget would allow for that, they could receive it in the fall. But because most students attend fall and spring, we'll split it between the 2 semesters, anticipating that you'll need this aid both semesters, so we kind of stretch it as far as it can go. And also, interest begins accruing on loans when they're dispersed. So having the second half dispersed later means less interest accrues. Does that answer your?
and well, yeah, I
Sorry.
didn't ask the question.
No, you're good.
Is the cost of attendance also split across the
Oh.
2 semester? So
Good question.
so that like, yes, if total for the year, your cost is 40,000.
Yeah.
Would you necessarily be able to have 40,000 in aid all in the fall semester? Or would that, I mean, that seems like a large amount, but.
Right, yeah. Yes, it does need to be split. Yes, cost of attendance is limited by semester.
Okay,
Yeah, so if a student's budget we do split it by semester. So we have a fall budget and a spring budget, and then for those attending in the summer, we have a summer budget. And yeah, financial aid for that term cannot exceed that term. So yeah, if a student's budget is 40,000, they would most likely get they could get like the 10,250 in their unsub, and then potentially some other aid. If they don't have any other aid, they could get that additional 9,750. If I did my math right, because that 20,000 is the fall budget, and then 20,000 the spring. Yeah.
yeah. And so you talked about how the amount you can get in loans is limited. And if a student also got some scholarships or other aid, then there's a limit to how much they can get in loans.
Yes.
Cost of attendance.
Yes.
If a student were only getting scholarships, like not federal aid, are they still capped in what they can get for that other type of support?
No.
No.
Yeah. If you have scholarships, waivers, like non-loan aid, that can exceed the cost of attendance. Yes, it can. It's pretty much only loans are going to be limited by the cost of attendance with scholarships, because we have plenty of students who receive more in scholarships than we would budget for them, and that just all goes through. Yes.
From online.
Nice.
If a student gets an institutional sponsorship and waiver for fall 2025, spring 2026 during the GRA employment in fall 2025, can they defer the sponsorship waiver to fall 2026 semester? Or is that both the same sponsorship and GRA benefits?
I believe typically we will when it comes to aid from like a grad school or from a from an outside like from a source other than like the federal aid, we'll have to disperse it and apply it when it is awarded. Um, so if a student is receiving that aid that semester, we will put it on their financial aid for that year. Um, you could potentially speak with the provider of that aid to like, hey, I don't need it this semester. Could I potentially get it next semester? And then they like send it to us the next semester. That could potentially, if that answers my question. Is there anything else? I don't want to take up all the time.
Another question on
Yeah.
that, cost of attendance
Mhm.
and if with loans, so if a student receives aid that exceeds their cost of attendance for that year, and so you said their loans would be adjusted.
Yes.
So what does that look like on the student side? Do they get a bill
Mm.
or what? How does that look on their end?
Great question. Hopefully there is some if we do our if we do our job right, if we get all the ducks in a row, hopefully it's the case where we will only reduce the loan once the scholarship has dispersed. And so like there's like that credit balance sitting there. We'll try to like basically capture that refund and then reduce the loan aid. So instead of that refund going out and then you have to like then we reduce the loan and then you make a payment, that does happen sometimes where we miss it and it's just like, oh, sorry, you shouldn't have gotten that refund. Could you return that or part of it? So yeah, that does happen occasionally. We do our best to communicate with students, like that when that happens, and um, of course, any sort of like late fees or anything that happened to have occurred because of that will waive or you know, but yeah, typically we will on the same day that we disperse the aid, we will reduce the loans. We get reports every day that we work that like, hey, this student's now their financial aid now is exceeding their cost of attendance. You need to go in and reduce the loan. We'll then adjust it that day.
Okay.
Something we do every day. But there has been occasions where the student will then be billed, but it's just basically you got the refund when you shouldn't have, and then we just ask for it back. I know it's kind of it can sometimes feel like we're punishing students for getting a scholarship, but in reality, I mean, yeah, it does feel like that. And so, like, if you need that extra money, we can increase the cost of attendance, and then yeah, like no problem. But of course, um, scholarships better than loans. So it's not it doesn't always feel like that, and so can always talk about it and explain it in more details. Did we have a follow up with the?
Yes,
I think I just like asked.
to kind of follow up, or they asked if they could change that in the cost of attendance application. And then they also had an additional question about emergency aid.
Mm.
That was something that they could get once, or can it be applied for each semester?
Ooh. Uh, so I think with the like the sponsorships, like deferring that, I don't think the cost of attendance adjustment form would be helpful in that regard. It may be, I may encourage, if you have questions while you're on Zoom, if you have specific questions, you may want to like schedule a meeting or email so that we know like we can look specifically at your account because so much of financial aid is a case by case thing. So yeah, we may want to look at that in detail, but the emergency aid the idea the hope is that students like they're typically one-time awards for that instance. Like it's like okay, like say like all right, I my car broke down, I have to like replace the whatever it cost $1,000. Okay, maybe we can help a little bit. We wouldn't be able to like provide that same aid the next semester for that same reason. It has to be for something else. And in general, we try to, because it is a limited fund, we try to, if we have a limit that we provide, like there's a limit to how much we can provide, and we try to make it fair, if that makes sense. Like because with that limit, it's like we try to make it spread as much as we can to those that really need it. So it can, in general, it's not something students should count on. It's not like a scholarship that we would award. It's like if you need help, then we can provide, but it's not like, yeah, it can be, it's good conversations to have. And if you need help, feel free to reach out. But let's see. We'll see there. Yeah, definitely don't want to take up all the time. I think at this point we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
Maybe. Don't want to cut folks off, but if you have more questions, of course, contact not Dylan, Chris, myself, since here, or you can stop by, whatever works. But yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Derek.
of course.
You should be able to either just click this or that be on there.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Glenda Eichman and I'm the Associate Director of Powercat Financial. Have any of you been into Powercat Financial? Do you know where we're located? Those of you. Third floor of the Union is our main space, and to find the third floor of the Union is kind of hard because it's only on this east side on the top. So we have a lot of students that get lost in that process. But a very powerful space in that we are about financial well-being. So when you have stresses from your questions about your finances, Derek did a great job of answering a lot of those questions that get really in-depth to the rules, right? We're gonna do handoffs to them and they do handoffs to us, depending on where the student is in their need. And so there will be some slides that I have because Derek and I didn't cross over beforehand. So I'll just skip past them and then I'll be able to answer questions that you have beyond that. So we like to have the student think about, if we're going to focus on your cost of grad school and how to get the funding, and then, how we can help with an education financial plan. It's a tool that takes you through all the different elements of your cost. But we think about why. Why does this matter to you? Why are you having stresses from it maybe? When we get a student in for an appointment, which you can schedule appointments with Powercat Financial through Navigate. Our website will take you right in where you can do that easily. This is just a data that shows the reasons why we choose, right? Why have you chosen to spend all this money investing in yourself? Because there's value to that. It's a great investment and you get to control it, right? For the most part, like you're controlling whether you're doing it and how well you're doing at that. And that leverage that you're using, sometimes, you may have to borrow funds in order to do that investment, but that's how sometimes those investments are handled that way in life, right? We know that there's potential greater earning over our life with that investment in education. And so this is just kind of showing that value and why you might make that decision. So be true to what you're thinking and your efforts in that. This was an estimate. It's on the website that kind of shows for grad school, but we get into more detail of specifically your story of the costs that you have. We're going to go in Powercat Financial. We sit down with you and we look at the unique story that you bring to going through a plan and creating that for you so that you can You can go in and modify if you need, or you can come in for more appointments to get help on it. Kind of as Derek was going through, there's the different levels where you're going to get the funding, right? So at Powercat, we look at first the free money that you might be getting. If you're at a stage where you're trying to plan for next year and we know your award report, then we can sit down and put in those pieces that we know and then try to help assist with where we can reduce this as much as possible by giving you ideas of those outside spaces of funding. So grants, scholarships, work study, or income from whichever means. And I'll get into that in a bit. I just think this visual is what we really want students to remember where it's coming from first. I did go out to the grad school website where, of course, we would encourage students and we might sit with them and look at the scholarships, the grants, fellowships, things like that, that they might have questions about. So if you're in a position to, work through some of those, we do that as well. And then reminding you to do your FAFSA and do your KSN each year. Some students don't always realize they need to do that every fall, or they just forget that it's that time to do it. And so on the grad school website, you would just come down in the link to get into where the grants, some of that free money might be. It takes work sometimes to get in and apply for those different scholarships, but we always look at like, what's your return on that for your time? If you can get in and put some focused time on that, really is beneficial. And then note we're coming down that, grants, scholarships, and then work study or personal income from, it might be your assistant positions, or other means, depending too, is it summertime and you're doing something different for income? I wanted to remind you, like, also sometimes there's the insurance that comes into play in the cost. And so whatever your situation might be, we come in and look at what that cost is and put it into it. Do you have parent support in any means? That's going to come into what we factor. And then this, Derek talked about in length. What are your options for that? So I'm going to let him lead with that. Okay. So this is the tool that I was talking about, the education financial plan, that if you wanted a chance to sit down and do your unique plan, this is where it looks a little overwhelming unless you love spreadsheets, which I do. Then it's really just formula based. We put the pieces in and it comes together. So we start with, how many credits are you taking in each of the different semesters? It actually has a summer on there as well. And it's going to bring the fees and the credits into this. It's got, of course, we update that as that changes in July. And then your student services fee takes all those and captures them up in those first two lines. And then we just start to walk down through that with your unique costs. We're trying to ultimately determine what are you going to need in student loans. And then we can say, well, how's that going to look? Is it going to be, are you going to have enough with the unsubsidized? Are you going to need to look at other means of loans? So you may be on campus, could be off campus. When we do get that determined, then we go out and I'll flip to this. We do a budget. And I think this is where students feel like, how many of you have done a budget, like sat down and worked through a budget? It gives such a sense of relief to have done that. And the other thing it does is it makes you more intentional as you're spending every day, because I know it's easy as students, you have this full-time job and you've got a lot of things to balance. And so sometimes it's easy to spend and not be aware of each thing that you're spending on. And we also don't tell you, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. We don't say that. We say, let's make a plan. If you eat meals out and it's just kind of a part of your life in this stage, then if it's working in your budget, that's fine. If it's not, then we kind of look at, well, where can we make adjustments? Can we say you eat out maybe less often? Or is there some other area that we can help you find the money? It's like you either have to make more or you have to spend less. And so we can help walk you through that. And what's really cool about Powercat is the fact that it's your unique, and they don't, like, these change for every client that we have come in. But I will tell you, almost every one of the students that does a budget says, I know I needed to do a budget, but just hadn't taken the time, or even to revisit if you have done one. And it can be whatever form you have. We actually also encourage students to use the budgeting apps, because those can really do a lot of work for you and kind of tell you really quickly in your categories how you're doing. You can set goals for your categories and it'll let you know if you're getting close. So walking down through this and just having conversation, it also allows us to recommend certain things like streaming subscriptions. Some students don't realize, well, there's discounts on some streaming if you're a student. So if you're using your student email, some of them you get half the price on your streaming. We have opportunity to talk about, sports betting out here in it is one of those things that students are, that we all have a lifestyle of what entertains us, right? But we have had students that when they get into that, they're like, I'm having trouble on that. What do? We do a handoff to those people who can do support for them in those habits that they're having. And so they're feeling maybe they're in a housing situation where they're feeling overwhelmed by peers about it. And so all those little pieces of the budget can have areas that we can help have conversation about and help you find ways to reduce that. So groceries, Cat's Cupboard is great. We know that they are struggling to have what they need. And so we try to say, for pure food insecurity, we want to encourage students to, but not just to save on groceries, right? And so we also let them know about local meals that are out there on certain days of the week or certain locations. There are opportunities to kind of reduce and maybe have that as a support. But just like I said, helping them find those things that can help reduce those expenses in any way. You guys have any questions about budgeting? I mean, we know what a budget is, but just spending the time, I think, is valuable. So when we there's a tab within this tool where we launch out to the budget, and when we get it done, that number comes back and is multiplied by 4.5 months in the semester in that spending plan amount. And so then we're done. We get the expenses for the semester, right? And sometimes a real eye opener, because like, really, it's costing that much for me each semester. But again, reminding you that that choice to invest is why you're here and it's important. And we also try to point out that quality of life, right? Like, do you ever think about how even before you came to college, how you came because you have a desire for a quality of life? Have you guys thought about that? Like, I mean, yeah, as I taught high school for years and students are all about like, I want to make a lot of money, right? But once you get out here, you kind of realize like you want to be where you thrive and you want the things in your space that make you happy and you want a career that makes you happy. But it becomes less about the dollar amount, but more about being able to give yourself that. Okay. So we kind of also help students in that financial well-being. Just remember, like, that's what you're striving for. So what does that mean? What is the picture of what's happening over the time that you're here? So it's really helpful to start thinking about it that way. And then as we go down the second half, we're talking about the resources that are going to help pay for all those expenses. So we get in and, like I said, we may or may not know what your award package is yet, because it could be, at a time of the year where, when are you looking at it for second semester? Do you know what you have? Where are you looking at it? And then plugging those in, we can put in if you have income from a job during the semester, or if you work during the summer, and that's going to come back into the year's support, and then any other resources you might have. And ultimately, we can then get down to a number, and then students might have a lot of questions about like, what do I do now on loans? And Derek sometimes will say, okay, here's where you're at with it. Here's what we can say you would be able to get. And if you have questions that kind of get a little more detailed, we can refer you to a financial aid advisor for that piece. So we kind of get it ready for them, and then they take it from there. But education financial plan, if you have where you feel like it might help you to have that in place, schedule an appointment and let us sit down and work through it with you. If you just want to do a budget, we can just do a budget. We don't have to have it as part of this. We also talk about credit and credit cards. Any of you have a credit card? Okay. A lot of students just don't understand for sure how to do that, or how, what are the different pieces of that to know. And they're scared of them, which, that comes from the generation of their parents coming through that. And so helping them understand what it is and how, as they move into their adult life, it's going to be something that's part of that. So, and then we do transitioning to work as well. If you get to the point where you're ready to graduate and you have job offers, we will sit down and help you with putting the financial to it, including all the benefits. So if you think about what's the 401k offer really worth, when I look at the salary, then I have all these benefits. What's each one, if I have a couple of job offers, worth financially speaking? And then, of course, we know that you're going to choose a job that, again, is where you thrive and where you'll be happy. So it's not always about the financials, but it's helpful to know that. And then we also can help you understand how to do the negotiating on job offers. Companies expect you to negotiate. And if you don't, you're just leaving money on the table there. So it's always, I think it's hard to know, well, how much should I negotiate? How do I do that? What's the process? What's the conversation? And we work with the Career Center on that too. So there's some handoffs that come back and forth from them. We can kind of get the student ready with what we're doing on the job offers, and then move them into advice with the Career Center. So kind of work together. This is, it's gradsense.org. It's a great site for a lot of the questions you might have, cost and value, funding your degree. It's just another website that we have on the Powercat Financial additional resources space that can be a way that you can kind of walk through some things as well. Otherwise, like I say, you can schedule your appointment with Powercat Financial through Navigate, or stop by. We do take walk-ins. We're like really slammed with appointments these days, but we try. So I have 15 peer counselors and myself, so usually we can get it done. Questions I could answer about Powercat Financial support?
Question?
Yeah.
You mentioned using budgeting tools. Are there any specific tools you would recommend, like apps or services?
Yeah, so we look at free ones because we figure they really, we've used them. Our peer counselors use different ones to do that. But we have, let me get out to Nerd Wallet. Maybe it's just easier than going out to it. Nerd Wallet has one. There's also my brain's right from that, because we have certain ones that are especially good. Nerd Wallet is the first one I think of that is free, and I'm sorry I can't remember the other main ones, but there are a number of them. Good Budget is out there, but it requires a lot more work. It doesn't attach your accounts, and some people like that because they don't feel comfortable with attaching their accounts. So Good Budget is one. I can't believe I can't remember this. But really easy to do. And what you can do is, if you're interested in getting into a budgeting app, you can make an appointment, come in, and then we can kind of help you get it set up so that you can start using it. But they really are nice because they allow you to see visually what's going on. They give you notifications, all of that. Now, if you get a credit card, some of the credit cards are doing a pretty good job of doing a budgeting piece to it. And so you might be able to combine, just through maybe getting your credit card, a start at using something in that form for your budget. Good question. Now I'm going to be like trying to remember the ones we kind of, more of them started charging. So we reduced the number of ones that we offer or suggest, I should say. So, and they had Mint, but then that went away, and they're creating one for college students that we are likely to be the national pilot for that. So we're going to see. But it looks pretty good. And since they had Mint, we know they're fairly good at it. So exciting. All right. Well, I've done my part of hopefully giving you what you might need from us and where we're located, and we're happy to help if we can.
we have a number of grad students who are online students, so.
Yeah. So they can do virtual appointments, yes. And we have day and evening appointments available. So that's a good question as well. Yep. And actually, we have students here that will do a virtual appointment, just it's convenient. So, yeah. Great. Unfortunately, I have to zip because I have another one. I'll do my other work.
Well, thank you, Derek and Glenda for joining us and sharing lots of useful information about finances and managing finances. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And thank you all for coming and joining us in person and by Zoom as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you. You're right.
Yes, a question.